Welcome to Toasted Lavender podcast where we drink and talk to other queer people. Today.
Yeah, that's all
Our
I
first
want.
interview.
Our first interview besides the art cell episode. Yeah, so we are going to go around and introduce ourselves. So if you just want to say your name and your pronouns and then what you're drinking.
Linsey, she, her. I'm away from the microphone today.
What are you drinking?
What am I drinking, honey?
It's a little cocktail.
It's a little cocktail.
It's a Sunday
We'll call it the kitchen sink.
The kitchen sink
Just
cocktail,
whatever.
the record store cocktail.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Me?
Yeah.
Taylor Knuth, he, him, his pronouns, and I'm drinking a Pog.
Mimosa.
Mimosa.
There's booze in it. Don't forget about
Right.
the booze.
It's not just the Jews. I'm Sean Bishop, he, him, his, and a Pog Mimosa. And I love it. I need to get some of that juice.
Kind of tropical.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Costco.
very, it's beautiful.
I'm Lisa, she, her, and I am having a Pog screwdriver.
Nice.
Alex, she, her, and I'm drinking the record store cocktail as well.
I like that. Kai, he, him, and I am having a Pog Mimosa.
Deloish.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Cheers,
queers.
everybody. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah. Was there any other kind?
No, there's not.
Not here.
So today's episode kicks off a series where we are interviewing some local queer folks and talking about holiday traditions. So we're really excited to have Sean Taylor as our first guest in our series.
And this is our first time recording at Lavender Vinyl, which is our other business. We're all crammed in the corner here. We should definitely take a photo of this because it's it's fun. We're making it work.
It's like a tiny desk concert.
Humble beginning.
Yeah, it is. It's like a
Yeah,
tiny desk.
we're just kind of here.
That
That's great.
we're just all crammed in and we're working it out.
Yeah, I don't even need a sweater.
No,
Cozy,
you don't.
cozy together.
So we'd love it if you guys wanted to introduce yourself, anything you want to share about who you are, what you guys are involved in.
Like, why the hell did we bring you here?
Yeah,
Why should anyone care?
Why did we want to bring you guys here? And I kind of told them a little bit, but like, you guys have a very interesting story, I think. So please share what you'd like to share with us.
Well, I think we need to back up to 2011, 10 years ago, almost.
Oh, that's when we started.
that's
dating,
when
yeah.
that's when you tell.
That's our story together.
Yeah. You start.
We sprung fully formed from the ground in 2011 as a couple. No, this is Sean. I'm from Delta, Utah, and then I moved to Riverton, Utah when I was 10 and graduated high school from there. And those are both very conservative towns. And I didn't realize how conservative Riverton was until I left, because compared to Delta, it was much better. Just because they have things there. It's not in the middle of nowhere. Like you can go to the store.
There's a Target.
Yeah, you can get to the mall. There's a mall nearby. You don't have to drive 2 hours to get anywhere. And then I lived in LA from 18 to 21 doing theater school. Musical theater has always been a big part of my life. And then I moved back here when I was 22 to Ogden to go to Weber State. And I did musical theater there. And I took an extra year. I did 5 years. Did 5 hard years at Weber State. And met this guy in my last semester. And then stayed in Utah. Oh, we went to New York. There was a brief little New York situation.
That you guys went together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we moved there and then very quickly realized we just want like a
The mountains
yard
were calling.
and a dog. Yeah. The city, I mean, it was so fun and we could see these paths of these careers happening, but we would just never see each other. We'd never see our families. So you'd have to kind of give everything up for that. And we were like, we miss being outside and nature and family and all that stuff. So we came back pretty quickly. But it was great. It was really fun.
And I'm from Provo originally, and my mom moved me and my 3 sisters up to Davis County, so Clearfield, when I was like 8 or 9. And there's not much to do in Clearfield if you've ever been. It's kind of just a bedroom.
They've got an aquatic center.
They've got
there.
an aquatic.
They do.
Good point.
We
That's
don't
part
have
of
that
Good point.
We'll talk about that though, because that's part of his. That's part of
That's
his
my soapbox. We'll
growing
get on
up.
later.
Yeah.
But,
When we get to the political section.
yes. But in Clearfield, not much to do. So we did spend a lot of time in Ogden and, in the surrounding communities that actually had something to do. But graduated high school from Clearfield High, came to Weber, met Sean, and I spent only 3 years at Weber State and then not
Yeah,
5.
so we balanced it out. So we each did 4. If we
So
just,
we each did 4 if we did the average.
he's in a hurry. He's not even 29 and about to do a PhD. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay.
I'm a lifelong learner. I love it.
Yeah.
But then, of course, we moved to New York, like Sean said, came back. We bought our first house in the middle of Ogden. Loved it. It was brand new.
And it was an Ogden program. Like, we wouldn't have been able to do it if it wasn't for like the special
wouldn't have
programming
been
they were
able to do
doing.
it.
We got very lucky.
We got lucky.
Right next door to our really good friend, Mickey Larson, by chance. Because we had built a different house like just through the city program on Gramercy a couple blocks down. And then last minute, these Ogden, they did a whole street of homes. And last minute, they said, hey, there's one left, and this is the address. And we drove up, and we're like, holy shit, it's right next to Mickey.
Yeah. Yes, please.
They're like, this guy backed out, like his financing fell through. And they're like, so you guys are next on the list. Which I feel like we were next on the list because we complained so much. Like, we kept calling.
They were like, God, just get these people taken care of.
So we bought our first house in Ogden. We like literally lived in it with like just a couch, a bed, and TVs because we had no money for furniture or anything. And just over like 3 years living in that house, we'd buy like something on sale here, something on financed over at Arsueli from there.
We changed a lot of jobs in that house too, though.
And we also changed a lot of
like
jobs.
We don't have kids and we don't plan to, and that's like the dual income no kids thing kind of started to happen. We were like, okay, this is kind of cool. We can actually like live a little bit.
And then dink.
A dink, yeah.
A double income, no kids.
Dink, baby.
Dink status. And
we cherish the dink status.
But
we watched kids for a while and we're like, you gotta go.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
Well, and that was the kids were actually a reason why we wanted a new house because that house was awesome and so great as a starter home. But anytime we'd let like my nieces and nephews over, it was just chaos.
It was so small.
Chaos because the floor plan was really small. So in the summer we started looking at bigger houses, and in Ogden when you want bigger you have to go older, right? Because there are not many new homes that are being
well, and we had talked about like even in New York we wanted like an old brownstone. If we were going to stay there, we're like, let's get a brownstone and fix it up. And we've always liked old houses, and I think I at least have my aunt and uncle grew up in a historic home in Denver, and just like the smell of the old wood and all that stuff was really nostalgic. And I just remember them fixing it up while I was growing up, and I was like, I want to do that one day.
And you guys are both pretty handy. Like a lot of the work
He's
you've done
much
yourself.
more handy than I am.
We've done a lot of it ourselves. We rent out or contract out the important things because we want them to last 100
You don't want your
years.
plumbing to...
Yeah.
No, and like we did wallpaper. We have this like 25-foot turret that's the stairs that goes up to the second level, and there's wallpaper all the way up that we wanted to replace. So we hired this little guy, Charlie, who's like the last of his kind.
He's Polly Pocket size too.
He's teensy. He's on this
Very
little, he's like on this little tiny ladder all the way up there, and I was like, "There's not enough money on this planet. You could pay me to get up on that ladder."
So spooky.
But
So
he did.
spooky.
He crushed it.
So what year did you guys buy your historic home?
18.
2018.
Okay.
But we spent all summer going through old houses. We even put an offer on and got accepted into the old Browning mansion on 27th and Adams. 27th and Adams? I don't remember.
Yeah, so it's right by Workforce Services.
But it's huge. It was 9,000 square feet, and it was a big fixer-upper. And we had big plans for it. And then like the week before closing, the owner dropped out. They didn't want to sell anymore. And it was heartbreaking. And so we actually stopped looking. We took our house off the market, and we're like, we're done. Because it was heartbreaking.
When you're a week away from closing.
my
Well, and it seemed like she realized because she's the widow. She's the widow of one of the Browning, like the heir of the Browning,
Doesn't
whatever.
live here. She
Lives in California, and I think she realized that she could get a lot more for it. So she just kind of torpedoed the deal, and then she did. I think the people who
She
bought
sold
it
for like 100,000.
I thought it was almost 2 because we were in the 3s. We were like 313, and then
Yeah.
I feel like it went for 5 something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we stopped looking, and we were just like, we're going to be content. I even started a project that next day.
Oh, we took our window, like we had a window in our bedroom that looked over the backyard, and we took it down and made a back door, and we built a little porch. We did like a flagstone patio, and that was like August, and we moved in September.
You didn't get to
we didn't know we were going to move.
Because you were feeling like, okay, we're
were
gonna
gonna
settle
stay,
in and
yeah.
just
Yeah, we're like, we have a hot tub, we have a fenced-in yard, we're chill, we can be here, and then
One day I was at work, and I had a meeting with a local business owner, and she texted me. She said, hey, my babysitter fell through. Can you just meet me at my house? And I was like, sure. And I put it in my phone to figure out where she lived, and I was like, I can walk here. And I'm walking there, and I was like, oh my God, she lives in this house.
Yeah.
This house. And so we have our meeting in her study at the time, and at the end I was like, if you ever sell, will you just call our realtor? And she knew who our realtor was. And then the next morning, I wake up to a call, and Sue says, Taylor, did you tell Rhonda you want to buy her house? I was like, I did, but don't tell Sean.
Well, I was really sad. I was really sad to leave our house because I don't know. I'm very nostalgic and like I fear change. So like leaving our little house, I was very sad about it. But I've always loved that house. Like I first came to Ogden in like 2006 driving a flower van. Like I would go to the airport and pick up flowers and deliver them to all the florists. And I would drive by our house and then the Jefferson houses that were like boarded up at the time. Like, and they're all inhabited and beautiful now and restored. But I would drive by that house all the time. I was like, damn, that would be the coolest house ever. So when I figured out it was that one, I was like, okay, I maybe.
So that was
I still cried a lot.
That was a Friday morning that we got that call that she said, well, they just want you to walk through the house on Saturday, and they were planning on listing, but if you want to put in an offer by Monday, they won't list.
Yeah, they were great. They were like, you can take a first crack at it.
So we went through a Saturday morning, spent a few hours in the house, brought some friends that we trusted to like look at it structurally because we don't know what the hell we were doing.
Yeah. Well, and they were like, we need to get this number out of it, and we were like, ooh, that's kind of high. Yeah. And then we said we would need to sell our house for $80,000 more than what we bought it for 2 years ago, and we were like, there's no way. And we listed our house, and the next day we had an offer that was like $81,000 over. Well, as we're like, because I was like, if we don't get it, we don't get it, and then we'll be fine.
So Saturday went through it. Monday we put an offer in. Tuesday we listed. Thursday we sold our house. 2 weeks from there we were moving.
It was so fast.
It was so fast.
And meant to be like that. Yeah. The way that all lays out.
Well, and my mom cried when she walked through the house for the first time because she just couldn't compute how we would go from a brand new house with no issues to this. There was holes in the wall. She's like, what are you doing?
But that's the thing. They'd done a lot of work and taken really good care of it. And the roof was brand new, and the new HVAC. We got so lucky in terms of like all the hard stuff that you have to do. But she was also like, this neighborhood is so bad. I'm like, it's one block down from where we were moving from. And the neighborhood's not bad. The neighborhood's great.
How much that's all changed so drastically in the last even 3 years. I feel like it's. I mean, they're doing new builds in our neighborhood in little slots that are this big.
I saw that.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Well, there's so much demand. Like, people need... The housing crisis is not just here. It's, like, everywhere. Yeah. And people complain about apartments, and we always just jokingly, we see new apartments like, ew, apartments, because people always complain, especially on social media. Yeah, and it's like, well, people need somewhere to live. Like, if you want your city to grow, like, that's what everybody talks about. Like, let's get Ogden on the map, and let's grow, and let's have businesses here, and let's have tech companies come here, and... It's like they need somewhere to live.
Do you think that D's that just got bulldozed? Do you know anything about that?
Oh,
that'll be
it got turned down?
Yeah, like suddenly overnight.
Yeah, it's been empty for such a long time. It should be. I mean,
I wanted it to be a brunch place.
Oh my god.
I wanted it to be Trader Joe's.
A Snooze.
I would love it.
Have you been to Snooze?
Snooze? No. What's Snooze?
You do.
It's like a brunch and cocktail place in Denver.
That's all I want is brunch
It's
and cocktails.
only open for breakfast.
That's amazing.
That's how you know.
That's what I wanted it to be.
Is it a chain? Can we like franchise it?
It's kind of a chain.
Someone
There's
call
one in Denver. There's one in...
Snooze?
Yeah.
San Diego.
San Diego.
They need to come here.
Of San Diego
Okay, we have not been to San Diego.
That's it.
You guys have to go to San
It's
Diego.
a really fucking gay place.
I love it. I visited a couple times when I lived in LA, but I haven't been since then. That's more than 10 years ago.
We're like huge beer people, and San Diego has the best beer scene ever. So
that's the thing. We travel to other cities, and we're like, why are we living in Utah where you can't buy wine at the grocery store?
I know. What is this?
What are we doing?
We're
going to change it. We're going to flip this.
Yeah, we're going to change it from within.
Yes.
Can I go back to your house for a second?
Yeah. Sure.
Haven't you guys, so I didn't participate, but haven't you guys done like a historical home tour thing? Can you talk about that?
We did.
Yeah, actually 3 years from the date we moved in. We were on the home tour. We were supposed to be on it in 2020, but of course, COVID, it didn't happen. And then we did it in 2021, and we were able to show off all the stuff we've done. We've basically flipped every room except for one. Mm-hmm. Well, two, really, but 1.5. But we've done a lot of work, and it's been so fun. And you meet the best people, too, when you're redoing your house. Like, we have Johnny Sparky, who's our electrician, and Alan the plumber, who's the plumber.
Well, and I text you for Alan the plumber like all the time. I'm like, hey, can I get Alan the plumber's info again?
We love Alan the plumber.
He was so sweet. He looks like Ed Sheeran. Like he's just like this unassuming dude, redheaded dude. And he showed up on my porch one day he texted me and said, "What do you guys drink?" And I was like, "Everything."
We drink.
He said, "What's your favorite? I was like, narrow it down. He said, "What's your favorite liquor?" And I was like, "Oh, I really like Uma, the gin from New World Distillery." And then he shows up on my doorstep with a bottle, and he's like, "Thank you for sending my name to so many people, for referring him." He's like, "My business has taken off, and I swear, like, I have 7 or 8 new clients that are from you guys." And I was like, that's so nice.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
And he's so great. Like,
And
he'll
does
just show
really
up.
good work too.
And he doesn't gouge you. He's
When
just
your
like,
basement's flooding at 4 o'clock in the morning, you can call Alan and he'll fix the pinhole leak.
Blake
in your
and
water.
I tried to fix a leaky,
no.
and it was a Saturday night, and we had about a half a bottle of whiskey.
Yep. And it's just that courage. Like, we can do this. We got this.
We can do this.
And we're literally putting plumber's tape around a leaking hole, like, oh, this is working.
I had to do that once. I tried to, and then because we had all this like copper pipe in our basement, and we're like, we need to change all this out because it's just getting old and needs to go.
But the home tour was a partnership with Weber County Heritage Foundation. They're kind of like our local historians, if you will. And every year they do this awesome home tour where you buy a $15 or $20 ticket and you get to go through a dozen homes. So
Yep, and they have like people there, like docents, basically,
and
guiding you through the house, making sure you don't steal anything.
Sorry, what?
docents.
What do they call like a guide?
Oh, I don't
They
know
like
what that word
volunteers. They
is.
just have like volunteers. Isn't that what it's called?
Yeah, it's
a
called a
museum.
docent.
A
I'm
docent.
sorry, I'm not
They
that
like
smart.
walk you through. No, you're fine. I'm not either. I'm an actor. I just hear it.
I
and
played a
repeat
few
it.
docents in my time.
And
played
you
a dozen
guys,
once.
you guys have like you participated in a
Yes.
TV show with your home. Do you want to talk about that?
Highly don't recommend.
Really?
Oh, it's just hard.
It's hard because TV production schedules are very different than like contracting schedules with like people who.
Well, and contracting schedules are already so delayed and so hard to deal with. So then you put on the TV aspect, and it's just like, and it was their first season, so they're kind of doing it all themselves because you have to. Like, if you get a network deal, you don't get a ton of money to put your show on. They kind of make you prove yourself.
But Candace and Andy Meredith, they're amazing.
They're awesome.
They're from Utah, kind of have made their living on renovating old houses. So they did like a Facebook TV thing when Facebook TV was a thing. And
For like 30 minutes.
Yeah, they had their
and they called it Old Home Love. And they redid their home that they lived in an American Fork. And then they found this old abandoned school building in
Fountain
I don't-
Green. It's
yeah,
not
Fountain-
Mountain Green. I always because that's the one
It's
that's
Fountain
here.
Green, and it's like 20,000 square feet, the old historic school building that they are renovating and making it their family home because he had 5 boys.
3 and
She
3.
had 1. I don't know. They have 7 kids, is what I know.
It's like
What-
mine.
it's
It was
7
3
too
and 3,
many.
Yeah, and then they had one together.
And so they're making this school their home, and then the pitch that they gave to Chip and Joanna Gaines for their new TV network, Magnolia TV network, was that they would redo this home and they would do other people's homes and call it homework because it's old school, kind of fun. So they found us on Instagram and said, "Hey, you guys want to have your kitchen redone?"
Yeah. They did a thing like an open call sort of where they were like, do you want a space in your old house redone in Utah or maybe California? They were like, we might be able to go to parts of California. And so they said, film a 1-minute video. And we were both sick, I think. We were like upstairs.
Well, it was the day after the Martini Bash.
Oh.
Yes,
We were not
hungover.
sick. We
We were
were
hungover.
hungover.
That's the same thing.
Flu-like symptoms.
Blue like some- And we're like, we got to go film this video. And we basically just stood in front of the house and we're like, this is why you should choose us because this house is cool. And then,
We're hungover.
yeah, we got to go to.
And they chose
did,
us, and they redid our kitchen, a
And it's-
bathroom, our pantry, and then
The
made
deck.
a new back door and gave
And
us a
they
big deck.
and they paid for like they covered
They made
some
it
of
more
those.
affordable.
Okay, they made it more affordable.
You cover like all the hard costs, and
Okay.
then they do all the.
They do the work.
The labor and stuff. Yeah, we had it
What
quoted.
was a third of what we would
Yeah,
have.
we had it
paid for.
quoted locally.
That's
and it was
awesome.
We paid about a third what we would have paid.
So was
so
that
awesome.
something that you guys would like? Did it turn out the way that you had hoped?
Oh, the kitchen. Yeah, it's like I couldn't have designed it better. And we sat down first and just kind of looked at Pinterest and because she said, "What do you want in your house? Like, what are you thinking?" And we showed her some stuff. And one of the pictures we had picked was a kitchen she had done. She's like, "I did that. I can give you that exact setup, like that cabinet and those tiles." And Yeah, and it fits the house, and it seems like it was always there now.
But it was 6 months of doing our dishes in a pedestal sink under the stairs.
We called it the bird bath.
It was
like
literally a bird bath. Like,
like-
that's the image you should have in your mind right now, is a bird bath.
And it's this like we have the windy staircase, and the bathroom is like tucked under the stairs. It's the
I know
Harry Potter
exactly.
bathroom.
Yeah, the Harry Potter
and we're like
bathroom.
crouched under there, and the
That's
water
where
doesn't
you
get
were
hot.
doing
Yeah, for
your
6
Water
months.
doesn't get hot for a few minutes.
Well, in 6 months from October to March.
So it's not like you could go out and do them with the hose.
No.
'Cause
No.
it's like
It's
freezing.
freezing.
So we
And that
kept
was
a
right
lot of
before COVID.
local eateries in business, and we ate a lot of chili. 'cause
We were
chili
feeling
heats
we
up
were kind of
nicely
on
in the
lockdown
microwave.
before it was cool because it was
We were on lockdown before it was cool.
We were just like we had our fridge in the dining room. Our table was chock full of like the cabinet stuff, and
Always a mess.
and we were ordering in all the time. And then we got we like filmed that reveal part of the episode, and that was March 17th of 2020. So we were
The
already
day
looking
after the
around like, well,
earthquake?
shouldn't we be wearing masks?
Oh my
like
God.
it was
We weren't
right.
even in our house for the earthquake. I was certain that
We
we,
were in a
would come
rental.
back to have the house leveled.
and it was fine.
It was
Our
fine.
house was
Not
great.
even a crack in the walls.
Well, you made a good investment. It sounds like.
And then we were like, well, we have to shut down, and the whole world's shutting down, but we have this brand new kitchen at least, so that was nice.
So, okay, I'm gonna change gears a little bit here, but you guys got married on the Grammys, right? Can we hear
Yeah,
about
I want that story.
They found us on Facebook.
Yeah, it was again. It really
finds
was.
you
It
on
was
social
it was
media,
a
you
social
guys.
media thing. It was. I was working at the Home Depot call center at the BDO. I was in HR, and someone Facebook messaged me randomly. Yes, I was on Facebook at work. Fire me.
I don't work there anymore.
Right? Come and get me. And they just said, hey, I see that you're engaged. Do you want to be on a TV show? And we were like,
A national TV show.
national TV. And I was like picturing some like 90 Day Fiance, like, or like Wipeout, like where you have to get married and like run across it, like something stupid. And I was like, maybe, I don't know. And they said, okay, we're going to send you an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, and then you can decide or whatever. Or we'll see if we even pick you. We're like, okay. So they sent that to us. I printed it out at work, and we Googled. Yeah, I was like, Home Depot has plenty of money. I'm really outing myself on this. Have another mimosa, Sean.
It's right there.
Well, and we Googled the production company, and all they did was the Grammys, and we're like, what the hell? And then he was like, it's probably Macklemore, because Macklemore had Same Love. And that's what it was. He performed.
And they also said you'd be on national TV and you'd be married by a famous person. It is what basically.
And you need to
said.
dress yourself and get yourself to LA.
Those were the only kind of stipulations.
Yeah. So we had to buy suits on credit cards and with our mom's help.
Banana Republic credit card.
Yeah. We didn't have suits.
I know.
So much.
We didn't have suits. And then
We were poor college students,
And we
essentially.
flew
I was my
Southwest.
final year. He was working full time at Home Depot.
I just
call
barely
center.
got promoted to the HR job at the call center, and I was on the floor before. Like,
Yeah.
we had no money whatsoever.
And I was working nights and weekends at IHOP.
We were living with family.
And we were living with my sister, and we were dirt poor, like just barely making it by. And they were like, "You need to get to LA and dress yourself, right?" And so we really did put
And I think my
$440 suits on Banana Republic credit cards.
Yeah.
and
my mom bought one of our
Mom
suits,
bought-
or like paid the rest of them.
Yeah, I don't remember.
And then somebody had Southwest vouchers. and
Yeah.
So we used those.
And then we stayed with his sister on an air mattress in the middle of LA
yeah.
in her
like, the
shitty little apartment.
North Hollywood. Yeah. It was awesome.
And then we didn't know. I mean, we could make a deduction that it was the Grammys, but they didn't tell us it was the Grammys until we showed up on January
26th, the day of.
26th. No, for the rehearsal the day before.
25th, yeah.
The 25th. And we're like, this is the Staples Center. The Grammys are tomorrow. I wonder where we're getting married.
And so we did a rehearsal, and we got to watch Madonna, like,
She's a hot
rehearse.
mess.
She was a hot mess. She had a kid on a diamond leash, and I was like, what is going on here?
I'm sorry. I need to know way more. About this.
Yeah. She had a human child on
On a
leash.
diamond-studded leash.
Diamond-studded leash. She had a cane and
with
a
her
big, like-
diamond grill in.
Oh, he had a grill in.
And full, like, white jumpsuit with red pinstripes.
Yeah, that was so interesting. Like, we did the rehearsal, and like Queen Latifah was the one who married us. Macklemore was out there doing his thing.
Yeah, Mary
And
Lambert.
Mary Lambert. And they were all wearing like super nice clothes and everything. And then they all wore something different at the show. And I don't know if that was like some designers like get photos in the rehearsal one and that goes out somewhere and benefits somebody. It was weird.
But we were like on standby under the like bleacher, like
In
under
the vom,
under the
basically.
people in the Grammys, and like the day of when we're like the Grammys are happening, we're like in a backstage tent, just like huddled up, and there were 32 other couples there.
And they wanted like all shapes and sizes. It was 30 something. Yeah.
30, yeah.
And all of our phones were blowing up because they finally.
Well, and one of the couples got kicked out at the last minute because they tweeted about it.
Oh, that's right.
And they said, "You are done."
Because they were like, "Do not tell your families." And of course, we told quite a few people, but we were like, "You cannot."
They kicked them out.
Hear this from us.
They violated the NDA.
violated
Yeah,
the
they
NDA.
did because they put it on Twitter.
But you guys, I don't follow pop culture very well. And we're like standing in our lines waiting to go in, and like this little Polly Pocket looking girl comes out, and she's like, "What are you guys doing here?" And I'm like, I think we're about to get married. And she's like, "Oh my God, that's so exciting."
Well, and she knew the two people in front of us. They were both choreographers who live in LA. And
I was like, she goes away. I was like, who the fuck was that?
that was Ariana Grande. And I was like shaking. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
We're about to get married.
Well,
She
yeah,
was like she's
teensy.
bite sized. Like
She's
she
Polly
is
Pocket for real.
She's Polly Pocket for real.
When we're standing in we're lined up in the little VOM, it's like in like concert documentaries where they drive the golf cart around in those huge stadiums. Like we can hear what's going on. Like Sarah Bareilles was performing with Carole King, and Metallica performed randomly. But we're standing there, and like all of a sudden Chrissy Teigen is walking by, and she stops. She's like, "John, you need to take a picture with them." So there's somewhere a picture of us with John Legend, like huddled around him, and then like Julia Roberts walks by
With an entourage. And
she
she
was
is beautiful.
stunning. I was
Like, I'm like, you look great for 50, girl. Get it. Get it. And then Willie Nelson had like the biggest entourage. She probably had 50 people walking behind him.
it was amazing.
Yes. you
My
guys.
mom was like, she was.
And then like when we actually lined up, and so they married us all in the aisles of like the celebrities.
I remember watching this
Yeah,
live
Yeah,
happening.
it's on YouTube. Like,
So we were standing right, like if I farted, I would have farted on Ozzy Osbourne.
You should have. So farted on Ozzy Osbourne.
I would have farted on Lord. I think. And then we like walk by, like, because they walk us down the aisle, and that sound, like, because we did the rehearsal and it's huge in there. I've never been on the floor of the Staples Center, which is going to be something else. They're changing the name, and it's stupid. It's like, that doesn't matter. Crypto.com, yeah.
Crypto.com,
Stupid.
you're right.
We're not calling it that.
So
But then we like that sound, and it's so loud, and you like do the rings and everything, and the song is playing, and then we walk by, and like Beyonce and Jay-Z are in the front row, and they're like,
Katy
oh my
Perry.
God. And Katy Perry, she was crying, and I waved to her. I was like, I love you, and she grabbed both of my hands. She's like, I love you. And it was, yeah, no. Tell me more. What specifically do you love about me? It was crazy, and we just got home that night to my sister's apartment, and we were like, did that just happen? And then like radio stations were calling us.
like in Canada, we had to wake up at like 3:00 in the morning.
And then they interviewed us at the airport when we got home. We felt very famous for a minute.
Very fun. It was fun. It was a cool
That's
memory.
a really cool
And
story.
kind of random how that came
Well,
to be.
and it wasn't legal in Utah at the time. So we got married in California, had a California marriage license that wasn't valid in the state. And then, of course, that June was the June that the Utah Supreme Court was like, oh, okay, queers, you can get married. But then for a second, right? And then they took it away. And then, of course, we got it.
Started the Supreme Court.
Then it started the Supreme
situation.
Court.
How many weddings have you guys had?
Just the two.
We have
Just
the
the two.
we have the
Okay.
Gramiversary in January, the
Yeah.
26th.
Which is also when we started dating. Was like right around that same
Yeah,
time.
we got engaged on the 28th.
Yep.
And then we have our anniversary in September, which is on the 14th.
Yeah.
And that's when you got married in Utah.
Yeah.
And we didn't have any.
And it wasn't a legal one because by that time the California was legal.
because it went federal because of the law change, and so we just had a friend, Nick Mon, married
I
us.
love Nick Mon.
Shout out
Nick
to Nick
Mon
Mon. It was
is-
so great.
He was great.
An incredible human.
And we had a great like 4-piece band. It was these local guys, Mickey's uncle, and people just danced, and it was so fun. And we catered Cafe Rio basically. Your aunt and uncle made it. They made it, and it was delicious. It was just chill and fun, and we wore the same suits.
Yes, I love
$420
that.
Banana Republic suits.
Yep, and we
Is there something old?
right, and we were kind of broke, and so we wanted gifts for all of our people, like our bridesmaids and whatever you would call them. And we painted shoes for them, which we'd never done before. And then I kind of took off and to this shoe painting Etsy thing that we did for a few years, which paid our rent in New York.
It did pay our rent in New York. Yeah.
Yeah, like Vans,
Like canvas vans.
Vans or Toms,
that
and we would
hawk,
paint like
Disney characters on.
Yeah, lots of Disney, lots of Marvel,
that's
lots of like
cool.
nerdy
It was
stuff.
very fun.
It was fun.
Very fun.
And I'm sure rent in New York City is not cheap, so you must have
Oh,
been
our
doing
mortgage
okay
was
with that.
cheaper than what we paid in rent in New York.
Yeah. Yeah, when we started, I mean, they take a long time, so I felt okay charging, and I just kind of would raise the prices, and people kept paying for it. So I was like, all right.
Yeah, keep doing it.
A lot of rich moms were like, my kid needs Elsa shoes or whatever. I'm like, all right.
Mm-hmm. So, and then you have, like, you got really involved in politics, too, in Ogden, so I'd kind of like to talk about that, if you guys are open to discuss that. I know you ran for office, and...
In 2017, right around springtime, a lot of conversations were being had of who's going to run for city council. There's always, so in municipal races, there are always 4 seats available on the seven. Well, they're always on odd years, but every 4 years it's 4 council seats, and then the other 2 years it's 3 council seats and the mayor. So in 17 there were 4 council seats up, my district, and then 2 at large, and then District 3, which is where Angela Chobrika lives.
Isn't she 1? We're
3.
You're
right. I'm 3. She's 1.
You ran for 3.
I ran for...
Which is currently Doug Stevens and will be Ken Ritchie.
Yeah. So at the time, Angela and I were working together at a local nonprofit, and she had expressed interest in running, and I was like, that's great. I want to help you. I don't know how to run a campaign, but I'm interested in running one day. I'm interested in working on campaigns. So like, let me be your campaign manager. So we barely knew each other at the time, and we had been working with each other for a year. And she was like, okay, yeah, I need some help. You can be my campaign manager. So I started out as Angela's campaign manager. And then when we went to file her candidacy for office, the current council member was there filing to run again, even though he had told me in weeks prior that he wasn't going to run. And that just kind of pissed me off.
It's Doug Stevens. We can name names.
We can name names. Yeah, we can. And he had already been on the council for 12 years. And I'm like, I'm super duper, like, we need to have turnover and leadership. And so...
Did you know that nobody else had filed against him? Or
nobody
is that,
had filed. And
you
it was,
can look that up. Or that's like public.
Yeah, every night they release the names who had filed. And there's a short filing window of like 5 days. And so by the 5th day, nobody had filed, and I was like, "We can't just hand this seat to Doug. We can't just hand the seat
for
to Doug. For another 4 years, making it like 16 years on council." So I was like, "I think I'm going to run," and I was like, "Should I run?" And
absolutely, yes.
And we did, and it was fun, and it was like one of the hardest things I've ever done.
It's a lot of work.
And if you look at the trends in that district, it's obviously gerrymandered, and it's totally like overlaps with Mormon ward districts and how those lines are divided.
Yeah, so a lot of those Mormon dudes can just call their people and say, "Hey, this is who we're voting for," and that goes through the phone tree basically.
And a queer candidate, a queer candidate had actually ran 4 years before me. Turner Bitten had ran against Doug, and Turner was an openly gay man, had just gotten married, same thing. So he had made some great progress in that seat because Doug got 70% of the vote the first time he ran. And then when he ran against Turner, the third time he ran, he only got 59% of the vote. And then when I ran against him, he got 54% of the vote. So we see these gains, right? And then of course, Priscilla Martinez, who just ran against Ken Ritchie, she lost by less than a point, 78
votes. And her campaign was just like,
it was impeccably ran. Like, she ran the best campaign a candidate in Ogden has ever run.
And I hope she'll be in the next time.
Agreed.
Me too.
Because she is...
Agreed.
Agreed.
So and I actually had considered running, but then Priscilla took me to lunch and she was like, "I want to run." I was like, yes. We support women. We support women of color. And she's a better candidate than I ever would have been. She's amazing.
She's awesome. Yeah, she's really awesome. I was so sad when I saw those numbers. I mean, so many people were, but it was just so close. And that it really was just a matter of like a few more people being inspired to get out and vote.
Yeah. Well, and of course, this is the tricky thing. Municipal elections are nonpartisan, right? They are not divided by Democrat, Republican, Independent. But there's definitely trends that imply, right, your political affiliations. And I think that it was calculated that Doug didn't run again because I don't think that the Republican Party thought that he could have won again. So they picked a new, younger, handsome face and ran Ken, and he did a good job too. We had 2 really good candidates in that seat.
Yeah, and I think he'll be an improvement on Doug. Not as much as Priscilla would have been in my eyes, just from a community engagement perspective.
Yeah,
Priscilla does the work.
Yeah, she's out there in the community, and I hadn't met Ken until he had started running, which to his credit, he did show up and like start going to stuff, and I hope that continues. And especially with all this Marshall White stuff coming up, I'm like, we need to talk to him and get him and say, hey, let's get this thing built.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the Marshall White stuff. We've had we've been talking with our listeners the last kind of as an end cap on our last couple episodes. You know, we want people to be involved in the local community, even though our podcast reaches further than Ogden. But I think, you know, getting your people and your community on board of something is how you start anything.
Yeah.
And
maybe inspire other people to look into their own communities if they're not involved.
Well, this is a really interesting statistic that we were talking about with a political science professor yesterday. If you were to remove every age group in the state of Utah except for 19 to 28-year-olds, guess what color our state becomes? It's blue.
Like solid dark blue.
If only 19 to 28-year-olds voted in this state, we would be electing progressive Democrats.
that's
across
really
the entire state.
Without fail, in every district.
And
That feels inspiring to me.
Isn't
It
that
does.
inspiring? I mean,
It's
it'll
like-
be a
it's the
few
future.
decades, right? Because old people have
Yeah.
to die. But
right?
but
It's true.
but
Gotta clear the field a little
that's
bit.
what keeps me going. And but the irony in that though is that the most inactive age group is the 19 to 28-year-olds. So that's kind of what fuels me is getting these younger people out to vote, which is it's hard because all the disenfranchisement that happens and the gerrymandering that in the state that happens, and
It's hard to vote.
it's hard to vote. Like,
Yeah, there's a lot of roadblocks.
yeah, especially if you work a normal job. Like your job is supposed to give you up to 4 hours of paid time to go and vote day
Just
of.
make it a national holiday.
But they don't. Not many people know that they have that right. Not many people have transportation.
And you can't. Like, even if your work technically says you have 4 hours off, like
Can you afford
when
4
Taco
hours
Bell, when you're on the line at Taco Bell and you need to, like, how
Or when
are
you
gonna
run a
do
small
that?
business.
and nobody's showing up,
Yeah.
nobody's there to replace you?
Exactly. You're not just going to leave your people or close your business or, yeah.
Yeah, and those roadblocks increasingly seem intentional. That just like to keep people away, so that a certain subset of people kind of controls the narrative.
Well, when I went to vote in 2017, the main library branch, arguably the one that should have Spanish translators located, they didn't even have a single Spanish translator at the facility. There were community members volunteering
Who had just
who
happened
had just
by?
were voting themselves to translate in Spanish for our community members who speak Spanish as their first or only language. So
In the middle.
All translators.
calling all translators, right?
Yeah, really, they should provide. I mean, read the neighborhood because it's Ogden, it's East Central Ogden. We have people from all over, and just having like only English is not enough
Not enough.
for accessibility.
Well, and speaking about not enough, do you want to? I've talked a lot. You talk about Marshall White.
What do you mean?
Well, tell us. So we've kind of gone over the main points of what's happening with it, but what are the updates and what can people do to be?
Our last update was right after the city hall meeting. So the big council meeting.
Maybe we should start with why should people care about the Marshall White
Yeah.
Center?
Yeah.
Both from like a practical standpoint and just like a symbolism and representation standpoint.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Marshall White himself, Marshall N. White, was a deputy for detective for Ogden Police Department. He was a civil rights leader, and he was killed in the line of duty in 63.
As he was investigating a burglary in the neighborhood.
In 68, they finally got the building put together and built. But we were looking through this giant scrapbook they have in the Marshall White Center of all the headlines of like, should this be below Washington Boulevard? Because in those days, Washington Boulevard was the segregation line, like legally. Black people couldn't own
It was red line.
homes above Washington or below 40 something. Like there was a spot that you were allowed to exist, basically. And so there were all these conversations, and then it got built in 1968, which is, the civil rights like culmination year.
But I think it's also important to remember, like, Ogden, Utah, had a black detective sergeant on the force in 1963. 1963.
That's
Yeah.
And Marshall was a retired veteran, a brick mason, a father, one of the presidents of the local chapter of the NAACP. Like, this man did the work.
Yeah. And I don't remember if it's his house or one of the kids' houses, but one
The
of them
family home was
got demolished to build the center. And they were Miss Oneida called into that meeting.
Oneida is Marshall's daughter.
Marshall White's oldest daughter, I think.
Yeah.
She called in.
76 years old.
Yeah.
I think.
And it was amazing. She was just like, the work has been done to have this building where it is, and we gave our blood, sweat, and tears, and we had death threats. We had people throwing stuff through our windows because we wanted it there. And so now that it's fallen into disrepair over especially the last 10 years, it's not really realistic to renovate it. I'm on the Marshall White Advisory Committee. I'm actually the chair now. And VCBO is this company who does rec centers all over the state and all over the United States. And they're kind of at the top of their field, and they've assessed the building. And part of what we gave to City Council was an assessment of what it would take to renovate it. The pool's not salvageable. The walls in certain places are not really able to be fixed unless you basically tear them down and rebuild.
They had to sell all the weight equipment because the floor wasn't structurally sound to support the weight anymore. An architect came in and was like, you need to get this weight off this floor tomorrow, because it could have just collapsed at any day.
So was there just like a time where they stopped funding it? Like, what has caused the decline? Because that's what we're like, it's there, it needs funding. Like, how did it get to where it is in this state?
It's a good question. I mean, it's a lot. It's complex.
I think it's years of neglect. I think it is. If you look at city government, they maintain, but they don't really improve anything, right? Like, it's pretty rare for you to see a city-owned facility or a city-owned asset get massive improvements.
Unless there's a giant fundraiser or people behind it who want to donate a large amount of money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So in my opinion, and of course I've only been around in Ogden for 10 years really, but really only paying attention for maybe 7 or 8 now, I would venture to say that the neglect really creeps in during the Godfrey administration. And of course he was mayor for like 15, 16 years, right? 12, 16 years. I don't remember. He was of the opinion that the government should not be in the business of public recreation. He said it many times on records. We have the receipts.
And we've heard that echoed
and it's echoed in
the
this
mayor and the
administration.
council now.
That they don't feel that the government can run recreation centers efficiently, that they don't think it pencils out, meaning that they'll always run into deficit.
Well, and Mayor Caldwell on that last call that I signed into straight up said, we're not here to do programming. And that's kind of why they were talking about doing the YMCA, because it comes with programming. But there's so many there's so many good people in this community that would do the programming.
The programming's already happening. It's still there. Like, there's still a wall of flyers for pottery classes and ballet classes and boxing.
It's still full.
And it's full. Those classes fill up. Like, the community will provide the programming. They have been for 50 years. Ogden has been very invested from all over Ogden. It's not just the neighborhood that it sits in, but the neighborhood that it sits in is the one who needs it the most. And that's the people who have been able to walk to it and send their kids there after school because they work nights. And it's so important. And that's like, we both grew up in rec centers, like going back to the Clearfield Community Center and mine, the Riverton Arts Community Center, where I grew up doing theater, and even just like learning to swim in Delta. It was at the West Millard County Pool. Like, those city and county funded rec centers really, really enhance communities in a way that you can't really see on a budget sheet. But then again, you can. Like, that's kind of a part of the national conversation. Is it Strong Towns podcast? They're really good about talking about what really healthy communities need. And this is it. Like, this seems like such a no-brainer. It's kind of fascinating how people don't think it's worth it somehow. But
well, and it's also important to contextualize that the city does own and operate 2 golf courses. We own and operate a municipal airport that gets millions every year in subsidies, like straight up, just like blank checks are written for that place.
And part of their argument against the Marshall White Center is that people won't use it, which is A, not true, and B, how many of us use the airport? Like,
certain people won't use it.
Yes.
Certain people won't, and that's true, and that's fine.
Just because of the neighborhood it sits in.
Sure. But that's the other thing too, is they brag about the Hostess factory site and how cool that's going to be, and how great that will be, and that's accessible and that's great and perfect. But 1 block south is not, like, that's not okay.
Yeah. Well, and that's, Alex just stepped out for a second, but she shared in a previous podcast that she grew up where the rec center in her neighborhood down in like the West Valley Kearns area, like she was raised, that was her babysitter.
Absolutely.
Like when you have 2 working parents,
Oh,
you go to the rec center, and that's not, we live in that neighborhood. We live in the neighborhood that Marshall White Center is in.
Yeah.
And it's a thriving, beautiful place. And I know it's kind of what we talked about earlier with your neighborhood. People still have opinions and stereotypes of what the people are who live there. And we're all a part of Ogden.
Yeah. Well, and you have to think of the context of the people who think that that's quote unquote, I won't even, like, they say it's ghetto, whatever, which it has so many problems to begin with. But you think of these people who grew up in Draper, and it's white, everyone's Mormon, and the lawns are manicured and the houses are perfect, and that's what they think a neighborhood should be. And so they go somewhere where the houses are all built in different eras and varying degrees of people engaged in taking care of their yards, which often has to do more with landlords who are not great renters than it does with people who live there.
And time. If you're working multiple jobs, if you like, there's a lot of
the privilege of being able to say, well, they should take care of their yard. Like, you don't know.
Well, and I get really on a soapbox about this, especially around this conversation of revitalization. These communities and these neighborhoods were already vital to begin with. They had a heartbeat. They had life. Nobody needs to come in and revitalize anything.
Right, and it's a fine line. Yeah, it's a fine line because we want to honor where we live, and gentrification is a very big problem.
And we're a part of that problem.
We're a part of that. We are some white people who moved into a poor neighborhood, but we love where we live. We love our historic home. We love that it's ours, and it's very... This whole thing like brings up so many levels of emotion and brings up a lot of
it's a delicate dance of trying to move into a neighborhood and try to not gentrify it and price out people who've been there, Marshall White's family, people who've been there for 50, 60 years, especially when it was the only place they could buy, and they have every right to stay there.
I have a really big problem with Mayor Caldwell's comment that he made in that city council meeting where he said that
emotional minority.
Well, just that like
that one was problematic.
I don't want to like misquote him, but like busing poor people into a more expensive part of town should be a privilege for them.
Oh my! I don't even remember that.
That was during that.
That
meeting,
really got me riled up.
He spent 8 years working with underprivileged youth, and one of the best parts about his job was seeing how great it was when these kids did a good job and were able to get bussed up to these nice facilities once they got good grades. And
and it's like, so pretty much, so it's
horrendous.
There's you know how many problems there are with that statement. But it's like, this community needs it, we'll support it. And I want to know like what we can do to further help this cause.
I think honestly people just want to show up and start doing anything. We're having a community conversation at the Marshall White Center about the Marshall White Center on Saturday, December 4th, and that's open to the public. We brought flyers somewhere.
Yes, I have them, and they're going to be hanging up in our windows here.
Yeah. And there's a Facebook group. It's all over. And Camille Washington did those flyers, and they're beautiful. And Alicia Washington's been helping us a lot. That's the thing, is people are like, what can I do? And we all want to say like, it's we, not me. Like none of us is in charge of it or.
Well, and it is powerful when people show up. So I will say I have a lot of access and privilege, full stop. And part of that access and privilege does afford me certain entry points into conversations that aren't held in the public sphere. I'm a past chair of the Diversity Commission. I can text a lot of our elected leaders, and they'll typically respond unless they're mad at me.
United Way, so you understand the nonprofit world in Ogden, but you also did development for Weber
State. But I bring this up because I know for a fact that the outcome of November 9th was determined before November 9th. But because November 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th happened, and hundreds of people called in, emailed, it was a different outcome on November 9th.
It was.
And
even just with us standing in that room with signs, everybody on that panel a lot of them had previously entertained the idea of moving it because the YMCA doesn't want it there or whatever the reason is.
And that we
All of them.
We have a reputation for that. When people show up, things change. The Marshall White Advisory Board was not going to be created. People showed up in 2017. It got voted in 2018. The mayor sat on appointing anybody for 6 months. And then we all said, no, enough is enough. Damn, do your job and appoint people to that board. A month later, we had appointments to that board.
You gotta hold
We
people
said,
to
where
what
is
they
the
say.
money? We said, where is the money, Mayor Caldwell? Well, we know that we have money to support this center. And in this latest budget cycle, the city council approved $1 million every year for the next 5 years of seed money to build the facility or rebuild the facility, whatever you
Or
want to say.
upkeep the current facility.
So when we show up, the conversation changes, and it changes fundamentally to the point that we can make I get into heated conversations with another co-organizer where I'm like, we're breaking ground by the end of 2022 on a new building. And she's always like, no, I'm thinking more 2024. And I'm like, no, if the community shows up, there's no reason why we can't be breaking ground on building a new facility by the end of 2022. Mm-hmm.
And so what the hoped outcome is that they'll demolish the existing structure and rebuild on that site a brand new Spark, because restoration doesn't seem...
It doesn't seem plausible, and it would cost quite a bit more. And VCBO has done this before where they have built a new rec center on the site of an old one, and they'll kind of build around it. And they talk to us on the Marshall White Advisory Committee meetings, which are public. Anybody can come to them.
You can go
I'm not
watch
sure.
them all if you
Yeah, I'm
want
not
to
sure.
at least.
You can watch, you can read the minutes and watch the recordings, and but they have used they'll pull up the old gym floor and use it on the wall in an artistic way. They'll honor the old site. There has been a conversation about making it a landmark, and I don't think that's necessarily the best course of action. I think
Because then you can't...
then we can't tear it down.
Right.
When we say that the building is literally crumbling, it's not an understatement.
Right. And the survey we did doesn't really support. There aren't people who are like, you need to save this beautiful building. It's just we need the center. We need the space.
It's not about the actual
So
structure.
Do you feel like the city will give enough money to support the rebuild, or do you think there's going to need to be additional funding?
So there's been talks, especially in this last city council meeting, of the council suggesting to double their initial commitment to $10 million. The initial estimates say about $30 million is what it would cost to build a new center.
Between 20 and 30.
That's a third of and it's not costing the taxpayers anything because it's BDO lease revenue, which is, not many people know that the city owns all of the BDO, and they have an agreement with the operators that we get a certain percentage of all the rental income.
Which is the Business Depot Ogden. It's like a big warehouse farm, basically.
It's
build to suit.
It's worth noting that if we didn't have that lease revenue, we would be bankrupt as a city.
Wow.
Yeah. And that fuels a lot of this conversation, right? Because there was a study done a few years ago that said in order for Ogden to not be bankrupt, we need to have $30 billion in taxable acreage, right? So your property tax, we need 30 billion, and we are not near that. So that's this idea that the city's community and economic development team looks at the downtown as the highest potential for that increase, because you're not going to increase property taxes on homeowners because everyone gets pissed off. But if you do it on the downtown core, that's why they view this land as being so valuable. So
Wow.
that was a lot of jargon. I'm sorry.
No,
that's
that's backstory
a lot
that we
of-
don't that I don't understand.
I was just looking at you like, oh, your bill might go up.
Yeah.
A lot
Oh.
of clarification. Hey, I'll pay an extra $1 of whatever to
Absolutely. I'll let
God, that's
my property
silly.
taxes go
Yeah.
up to pay for that. And that's
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing they talk about, like, we need the more revenue, we need this and that. I mean, the way to get people to stay in your town and have kids here and have their kids grow up here is to have stuff to do and have a safe place to drop your kids off, and they can go to gymnastics and then pottery and then come home and they're safe.
Well, and I'm sorry, but we live in a town full of doers and dreamers. And when Ogden High was on the chopping block, people said, hell no. When the Egyptian Theater was on the chopping block, people said, hell no.
Polk Elementary.
And like even the Monarch, to a certain extent, I know it's a private development, but like we have a reputation for taking insurmountable challenges as a city when it comes to our infrastructure and really just slaying all day
And even
long.
this 25th Street, even this corridor of just, it's been up on the block.
The
a
Junior
lot of
League
times.
saved 25th Street. I don't know if you guys know that story, but when the 25th Street started being demolished, this block in particular, they got through this block, they were ready to do the other block, and the Junior League stepped up and said, hell no.
You're not putting
This
white
whole thing was going to be
siding
raised.
all over.
Yeah, this whole thing was going to be torn down, and the Junior League said no. So we have a reputation of being resilient and really stepping up when it matters the most. So we have $10 million in BDO lease revenue that will likely be determined in the next few months. There's the American Rescue Plan dollars. Ogden's getting some odd $30 million in money, and this administration has been very inauthentic and not transparent with how we're spending that money. That money could easily be allocated towards the Marshall White Center if there were public pressure to do so.
Well, and what better cause?
And we have Ogden, and the mayor, this is the mayor's favorite quote, Ogden is the most charitable community in the nation. What does that say about the Marshall White Center that we couldn't turn around tomorrow and raise $10 million in a year?
We could.
We are
People
the
for
most
Ogden High
charitable
raised
city.
20 something.
Yeah. Ogden, Clearfield metro area, most charitable area in the country.
Well, and that's the other thing is every city around us has figured it out. Every other city up here, every other city of our size in Utah or a lot smaller has public recreation. Like Roy has 30,000 something people, and we have almost 100. We're in the 90s, and they have this giant aquatic center
That's
6
huge
pool.
and beautiful, and
Yep.
yeah,
So if they can figure it out, what's our problem?
yeah, I totally agree.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point.
And we're one of the only cities of
of course-
size in Utah that doesn't have it.
We also might have to bond for it, which
Sure.
is it would go up for a vote, and the voters would have to determine if they wanted to bond for that amount of money. Historically speaking, Ogden voters do like bonds, but we have voted them down before. I don't know if you remember in 2017 that the Polk Elementary School bond was up, and we voted that down. And then they ran it again in 18 and it got voted up.
Yep.
So even if it takes us a few years, I feel like we can bond. And it's also the Godfrey administration bonded for the junction, and it was billed as a recreational bond,
A public
recreation bond. I don't remember the last time any of the public has used any of those facilities for free.
No,
No,
people can't
but
just
it
go
was,
in there.
but the voters approved $30 million.
Do you think I could try?
You can try.
Just go into Fat Cats?
Yeah.
Like, I'd like to bowl, please.
I paid for this with my taxes.
I have the right to.
Ogden residents bonded for that private development, and they said yes to it.
Well, then they put an iFly in, and that thing's like $50 at least.
$90.
Like it's not a rec center where you can
It's
walk
not
in.
accessible.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I did it, I didn't make it very high. I was a little chubby.
Didn't somebody give us gift cards or something?
Your mom gave us gift
Oh,
cards.
yeah. Yeah, we didn't really fly so much as not hit the ground.
We made it.
That's great. That works.
We made it.
Arrested gravity just slightly.
Do you have any closing statements on the Marshall White Center, what you've been working on, what you want our listeners to know about it?
I would say just show up. Go listen to your city council meetings. I've learned so much just from listening to them, just being married to him in the same house as him, listening to our friends go up and say, I'm making public comment tonight. Go make a public comment. Go let your voice be heard. And I think we've shown, like we said, all of those people, not all of them, but a lot of the council members and the mayor and the administration were entertaining the idea of moving it. And then we all showed up to that meeting, and to our faces, they were all, A, visibly like shook by it, and B, said, we don't want to move it. Of course we don't want to move it. And so now we're not moving it. Like that's in the city, that's in the ethos that's out there. We're not moving it. So showing up has a lot of power.
And I would say showing up even in times of not crisis. Like it's really easy to get riled up about the Marshall White Center or about police reform or about whatever hot topic is scrolling through your feed in any given day. But something as simple as go to the city's website, subscribe for the council agendas. They get sent.
That's huge, yeah.
They get sent every week to your inbox. You can just scroll through it and read the agenda. Even if you don't show up for the meeting, at least you're aware of what's going on in that agenda. And then the city council, Brandon Garside, who's the communications person for the city council, they've been doing a really fantastic job, especially post-COVID. Not post-COVID. When COVID happened, they were forced to really modernize, and they've done a really good job. Brandon and his team post these amazing quick recap videos on the social media of the council every week.
Oh, that's cool.
And they're like 3 minutes. So even if you just watch those, that's 3 minutes of your week.
So you know what's going on.
Yes, so you can,
Yeah.
and he does a very good job of just like succinctly stating like, this is the conversation, this was the vote, here's the outcome.
Yep.
And I think it's so, if we all did that,
Sure.
we would be so much more aware of what's going on, from boring zoning stuff to important issues like the Marshall White Center. I think people would be really upset to know that we are spending $6.25 million on improvements to the airport this year alone. $6.25 million. And
that's
and the city will come back and say, oh, well, we got grants to do that, and we used this blah, 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 blah. But that's a lot of money for a facility that only the elite, and they're not even Ogdenites that own and operate those leases.
Yeah.
They're out-of-towners that come in and take advantage of our public infrastructure that we pay for. So...
Yep. And that's the thing. Yeah. Like you said, showing up for the things you care about, just the raw data of that. Like if you get that agenda and you see something on there you care about, and then you throw your iPad on the counter while you make dinner and listen, just having that number, having those numbers go up for important issues to you, even just that shows them like, hey, people really tune in when we talk about this. We get a lot of public comments when we talk about this. So just having that little bit more of awareness for me has helped a lot to understand what's going on. Like I'm the chair of this committee, and a year ago I was like, I would never want to be in leadership of the committee. I barely even thought I would make it onto the committee. And it's just, I mean, it's kind of designed to make you feel that way. I feel like it's very intimidating, and it's
and the rules of civility are just there to uphold white supremacy, if we're being entirely honest.
Yeah, well, and I had a really hard time with the diversity commission. Like I had a really hard time with it, and it wasn't anybody did something wrong, but it was just what you're saying. Like I just felt like
imposter.
Yeah,
syndrome.
like I just couldn't.
You're one of many. Like not to discount your experience.
No, I know it. That's a common thing.
It's been a trend, and it's a problem. It's a huge problem, and it's the city. I mean, they had a diversity employee who was supposed to be right under the mayor and had the mayor's ear, and that did not go well. And they squandered that opportunity, and they're squandering their opportunity with the diversity center. To be honest. Yeah. They're not diversity committee. I mean, not diversity center.
Well, it seems like an optics thing. It just seems like they have it there so that they can say they have a diversity commission,
but they don't actually listen to them, and then they publicly call them biased and whatever on the council meetings.
Right.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, so just kind of the last thing. Like this is we're gonna go fun a little bit. We want to talk about the holidays.
Holiday time.
Yeah, we want to hear about your queer holiday traditions.
Oh man, we were thinking about that on the way. I was just thinking because we just got some Christmas cards and stuff from people, like holiday cards to put on the mirror, and we've never done that. We've never
done a Christmas card, holiday card,
that
whatever.
That surprises me about you guys.
I know. You'd think with the theater and the
one year we did record a song.
We did. You did?
Of course you did.
Oh yes.
My God. And we made it naughty.
So
the album cover was
the song wasn't even naughty. It was just the cover.
The song was what? I don't even remember.
Describe the cover for our listeners.
Well, it was us.
He was very anti this.
Oh, it was.
He's like,
he was very.
It was humiliating. We were both putting ornaments on a Christmas tree, and we were both not wearing pants.
Yeah.
So you could see our asses.
We were a lot more svelte back then.
We
were a lot more svelte.
I don't know if I was. I don't know if I could even
I
find
hope
it.
everyone burned that.
Can you please dig it up? We'll put it on our Patreon.
There was some.
And you only see our booties. Only our butts.
Well, and there was some pun we did with like holes
jingle
for the
bells.
Jingle balls or something.
I think we did jingle balls. I don't remember.
Bells or holes.
Something.
Yeah. It was Oh Holy Night. Because that was the song. It was Oh Holy Night.
You guys, I love this. Why don't you do this every year?
We did that one year, and we gave them all. Yeah, we gave them all kind of like white elephant gifts.
Yeah, we just gave it to our family. Amazing. It was only family, and they all screamed. It was funny.
But it was a lot of effort, you guys.
It was.
I think you're like, I'm doing school right now. I'm not doing that right now.
Our traditions feel like, I don't know, they're very personal. Like we have stuff that we do with our families, but we also have like parts of our family that are strained and we don't really engage with, and for various reasons. Part of them being the queer experience, but we just kind of do whatever we want. Like that's our tradition, is to just like carve out space for ourselves. And
for a few years there at the beginning, we would go to Disneyland every December. We did that for like 3 or 4 years. Because here's a pro tip: like the 8th to the 13th, dead. It's ghost town.
So and it's all decorated for Christmas.
Yeah. So we did that for a few years.
We've traveled a lot over the holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I think things like Friendsgiving and kind of chosen family stuff has taken an amp up in the last few years. The holidays are weird. And I mean, I don't need to tell you all, but like it's so hard, I think, for everybody, just because family is weird and strained and difficult. And I think for me, it's just like doing the comfort things. Like
well, and as we get older, like, and more anti-capitalist, like, and more like decolonizing, Thanksgiving is terrible and Christmas are both terrible.
Yeah.
Like from a social justice lens, like it's really hard for me to balance. Like my mom, we grew up really poor, but my mom, I know how she did it. She put it all on credit cards and layaway, but Christmas was always huge for us, but we were very poor.
But she would go all out.
All out, like dozens of presents for each of us. And it was a whole thing. Yes, a whole thing. And, you know, especially in recent years, like I look at the stuff under the tree and it doesn't bring me joy. It gives me a lot of anxiety. And like, especially with
where am I going to put this?
I know, where am I going to put this? And like now that like double income, no kids, we buy what we want when we want it.
Yeah,
which
buying
is
for
such
him,
privilege.
like us trying to find gifts for each other is impossible. And it stresses both. Like last year, he got real mad because I did get him something and I didn't tell him. It was kind of big. And he like went out on the town trying to buy something that day. And he was like, I'm so stressed out about this. And I was like, we don't need
That's
to do.
not why I did that for you.
No. I just got you something and didn't tell you because it was fun and it was something I knew. Finally, something I knew you wanted. It was a KitchenAid. It was a sage green KitchenAid.
Oh,
sage
that's
green.
good.
It's like
That's
forest green.
good.
Maybe. It was great.
Yeah.
But that's the thing we've talked now. We're like, we want experiences. We want.
Yeah, and of course, like my sisters are re-traumatizing their kids with these huge Christmases, and like my nieces and nephews are like the kids, right? And I want to spoil them. And for a few years there, we did like we would spend hundreds of dollars on these kids for Christmas, and then it was just like, no more. So we're really trying to focus on experiences and quality time, and just really trying to spend meaningful amounts of time with our family to show them that like beyond the material, we're there for each other. And I think that's how we've kind of embodied the holiday spirit, is just by spending time with each other.
Yeah, there have been lots of holidays, especially early on when we did try to go see every aspect of the family. We would get home and just want to hole up and do nothing.
For like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, it's so
Yeah.
exhausting.
So we've just taken that time out to just kind of do that first. Do that important stuff together and be picky about where we spend our energy otherwise.
Yeah.
And in recent years, we have taken up like throwing holiday parties. So we did like a big Halloween party this year. Before COVID, we had a really big New Year's Eve party. So, and that's like all our friends and family in it. They're so fun.
Yeah.
And so like, I would rather spend like $500 on booze and food and have 40, 50, 60, 70 people at my house and like just have a good time.
Oh yeah. And you have those pictures and those memories. Like we still talk about the funny, dumb stuff that happens.
Oh yeah.
At those parties with your core
We've
group.
heard about your parties.
They're fun.
We're invited to
We saw the whole
Trick or treat.
well, yeah, the whole I saw Alicia Washington's amazing costume.
Alicia
Incredible.
she was beautiful.
I missed it.
It's so good. It's so good. Yeah, that is important. That's like now that we have a house, we have a space that we can do what we want and have people over and that's really nice. Like to have the people who care and who show up for you and celebrate each other. I think to me that's the important thing.
Yeah.
Because we both come from like childhoods that were like divorce situations and other situations that like you don't have a lot of stability. Yeah. So for me, stability is kind of huge. So I'm like, I love to be in my house and I love to have the people I care about over and just do fun things and not have expectations and not have gifts and not have.
We do watch The Family Stone every year.
I love the Family Stone. So
That is my favorite Christmas movie, you
I
guys. I'm so
am
glad
obsessed
you brought
with it.
that
I
up.
never know what's going on.
I cry.
I don't think you've made it through it.
I don't
I
think I've ever.
cry every time I watch it, and we always make a Christmas strata now. We make a vegan version from the because of that movie. And the music in it is
So good.
A+.
So perfect.
I really liked your answer. I feel like we've had this discussion multiple times about like now that we're like adults, like it's weird. I don't see myself as an
We've been
adult,
married
but,
5 years and we're just suddenly adults.
but like I feel like we got to take our own narrative back with the holidays, if that makes sense. That's just like, you know what? No, like this doesn't need to be so stressful and miserable and overwhelming and expensive and going into debt and trying to juggle credit card bills so that you can buy everybody a present, and it's just not worth it.
Well, even on Thanksgiving when we were with my family, my sisters had just gotten back from their in-laws, and I'm just like, I'm so glad we're in a situation where we don't have to, because Sean's mom lives in Oregon and his dad lives in Delta, so we to do that would be impossible. Right?
To go see everybody
So we're in
is
a
a
nice
blessing.
position because we only have to do my mom, and that's it. So
Yeah, and it's just that
Just a lot
whole
of effort.
that whole rigmarole is just so hard on people, I think, and that level of expectation breeds a lot of problematic, traumatic stuff. Like, you have to love this uncle, you have to love these people, and you have to, not that loving them is the obligation, but you have to be kind to them and you have to have them in your life. And you're like, no, I mean, if people don't treat you well, then you don't have to.
You can set boundaries.
You get to have boundaries. You get to go where people actually care about you and put in the work and show up.
And like really lean into like the full version of your authentic self, right?
Are you guys the type of people who like decorate your amazing historic home like
We've been
all
bad.
out?
We've been so bad.
No?
I used to love doing Christmas lights and the whole shebang.
And he's way more brave than I am. I don't like getting on a roof, so I leave that up to him.
Do you have gutters?
We don't.
No gutters.
I just had to clean out my gutters.
Oh, man.
It's terrifying.
I need to
Horrible.
let you know my high school principal died from falling off his roof putting up Christmas lights. So I feel like I need to like give a PSA.
I'm not allowed to get on the roof.
Guys never allowed.
I just
We
go
don't.
up the columns because we have those
We have
columns on our front
columns. We have a
porch.
railing.
Not a bad.
Do not get on your roof this holiday season. Anyone who's
PSA.
listening.
Well, our
PSA.
roof, the highest point is like 30 feet in the
Yeah,
air.
fuck that,
No.
Sean. You're not doing
Not
it.
doing it.
Hire a professional. Hire your Polly Pocket friend to come and
We love
You
Charlie.
don't do it unless you're professionally trained. Please do not get on.
We always joke that if we build a house ever, like, and just rent the old house out, that we'll put the best like custom built Christmas
Eve
lights
li-
in
yeah,
it, like
Eve
just
lighting.
built into the roof.
I'm just picturing.
Perfect.
I'm
That you can
picturing
program
your
with your
Yeah, it's
little
like,
LED
boop, boop, boop.
remote.
Yeah.
I'm picturing your home though, like with like the candles in the windows, the like
Funny.
back in the day, like historic.
That's a good idea, though. We do have some candles we could put in the windows, and they're flameless.
Those
Yeah, the flameless.
battery ones.
Yeah.
You know, we're just telling you how to live your life
Costco
here.
has like the real
we love Costco.
wreaths and swags of like
Oh, well, he bought some chintzy stuff.
I did.
Oh,
It's bad.
well.
I'm gonna return it.
return it and go to Costco.
I will. Well, we have this fountain now because we redid our yard, and then I bought a cover for it, and it just happens to be green, so it like looks like a Christmas tree. So I bought this like star with drapey lights that I thought, let's just make it look like a Christmas tree, and
Yeah.
it didn't look.
work.
It doesn't look good.
He's like, no.
No.
like, take
It's
that
very chintzy stuff that I'm going to return, but
It was a valiant effort.
I tried.
I will. The weekend after Thanksgiving, we do decorate our tree, and that is one of our.
That is a tradition. We put on Leslie Odom Jr.'s
We
Christmas
do
album.
Leslie Odom Jr.'s Christmas album, and we whenever we travel, we try to get an ornament from wherever we've been. I know that's pretty cliche, but that's what we do. But it is fun to like pull out the ornament from Mexico and think about the trip we took with Sean's mom, and like it is.
When we went to Oregon, and we got like a lighthouse one.
Yeah. So our tree is not like cute. It's just a bunch of random.
I like it that
ornaments.
way. I don't
But
like
it has
the,
really a lot of
meaning.
personality
Yeah.
and meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like the like.
But we haven't done it
interesting
yet,
trees.
so we need to do that today.
Our tree's up. We just haven't put ornaments on it. So
So
we should do that probably today.
If you had like one thing you had to do this holiday season, what's like your number one on your holiday bucket list?
Such a good question. Honestly, for me, it's the simplest stuff of like making something really good to drink and sitting with no lights on, only your tree, and like watch Home Alone. You know, like
With your dog and your cat on your
yeah,
lap.
just like being warm and having it snow would be nice. I don't know if the planet
I don't know if that's ever gonna happen.
the planet's
the
capable of
planet's-
that anymore, which is terrifying. Yeah,
Let's
but
keep it positive.
whoa.
We're trying to end on a light note.
way
here.
to steer it into the.
I'm pretty basic. In November, it is pumpkin spice everything, and in December, it is eggnog everything.
Okay.
So I like always want eggnog in the fridge, and I'll just do like a little 3-ounce pour and just sip on it.
A shot of it.
Oh, I love that.
It's the best. I
Do you
love
add
eggnog.
Southern Comfort? Like, do you go traditional?
You've never done booze in it.
I've never done
You
booze
just
in
like
it.
it straight up.
I think it's for me, like, because I grew up in like essentially a single parent household. We spent a lot of time at my grandma's house, and she always had eggnog around the holidays. So for me, it's I don't want to like adultify it.
Yeah, that's
I just
fair.
want to keep it pretty innocent.
Did she make it, or did?
Oh no, it was
It's always
always
like
just
metal gold?
I used to
Yeah,
make
yeah.
Alton Brown's recipe. If you ever want to
Ooh.
make eggnog, it's like the one thing I can't replicate that's dairy free because we don't do
We've
any
tried,
dairy.
yeah, and it's
And
not-
it's just like because you whip these egg whites and you
Yeah.
fold it in, and it's like the most decadent. It's like one of my favorite memories, but I I would like to pass that on to you. If you would like to like recreate that, please just Google Food Network Alton Brown's eggnog recipe. It's so easy and it's amazing.
There's also George Washington's eggnog. Has anyone ever made that?
Like the president?
Yes. It's the booziest shit.
Yeah, we for sure canceled him.
I know, but it's boozy and
But the
kind
eggnog's
of
not
good.
Right. Can we rename it?
Yeah, we can rename it. But if you want to find the recipe, you got to Google. You have to Google George Washington.
Look it over.
It's going to screw up all your algorithms on your phone.
Boozy, though. Yeah, we should make some boozy
There's
kind.
like 4 different booze.
Yeah, we need that.
This is a booze podcast, so we
Yeah,
talk about
really.
booze a lot.
That's all we want.
That's all we want. We're queer.
All right,
we're
well,
here. We're drinking beer.
Thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your Sunday to hang out with us and come
I'm glad
chat
we
with
did it.
us. And
We got to buy some records. I put a couple over there.
I got you.
They're closed.
Well, we're open now.
They still have their Venmos not closed.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll just Venmo you and run.
Well, we hope you guys have a very merry holiday, whatever.
Yeah, thank you.
Holiday.
Seriously,
Holiday.
thank you for
Happy holidays.
taking the time. I know everybody's really busy right now, and
Oh,
we
it's
appreciate
good.
you
It's
guys
good to
doing
chat.
Linsey, I hope you like insert a little jingle bell sound effect right here. I know you will.
You have to.
many sound effects.
There you go. I like that.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I have no-
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing your
I can't
holidays
hang.
with
I
us.
A term was spoken earlier that we need to explain, and it was called VOM, and this is your theater lesson for the day.
There you go.
VOM is short for vomitorium. And in Greek theater, they had these vomitoriums that actors would enter into the stage, and vomitorium means to spew forth, like vomit.
Okay, well, I was wondering it.
Vomitorium,
Okay.
to spew forth.
So that's what spews you forth onto the stage, but also if you have to puke, then that's where you should go.
To the vomitorium.
Yeah, sorry, we're using fancy words today.
No, I love it.
Your
We learned a bunch
vocabulary
of new
words are
today.
docent and
Docent and
vomitorium.
vomitorium.
Brought to you by the letter D.